to lay out 3 facts here. And remember, I'm not supposed to be engaging in the debate, so nobody try that. 3 facts here. This has to do with our fiscal state of affairs. Number 1, the fact that state appropriations increased significantly from 2011 to 2013 is beyond dispute. And I'm going to refer here in this question to session spending. That's an important distinction there, everybody. Session to session spending, not budget to budget.
What was that?
In the 80s, what I'm laying out here is the session to session spending. I'm laying this out for Senator Patrick, and y'all are going to get to do a redirect on that with him. Okay. Session to session spending from the 82nd legislative session through the 83rd went up $20 billion. That's GR plus the rainy day fund. That was a 24% increase in session to session spending. Point number 2. According to the Tax Foundation, Texas is 11th in the nation in reliance on federal aid. Point number 3. Texas leads the nation in road debt. In fact, state debt has grown 125% over the last 10 years. Senator Patrick, what do these 3 facts mean to Texas, and how do you plan to deal with those facts if you should be elected Lieutenant Governor?
Great question. What it means is that we have not been disciplined in the budget process. And I will go back to a point I made earlier when liberal Democrats, who are 1/3 of the Senate, have a large say in everything that is done. We cannot lead as the conservatives that you have elected. Our founding fathers said that a 1/3 should never have control over 2/3, or you have tyranny of the minority. So what happens in the budget process is the Democrats are able to shape the budget, as they did this session, when in order to get their votes, we gave away a $500 million from the System Benefit Fund to several 100,000 Texans in just one check. We gave away $500 million in a great wealth redistribution. The point is, Joanne, that we have not been disciplined to pay as you go, for example, on a number of projects, and that's why we have so much debt. We have not been disciplined to end the diversions in the budget. We have not been disciplined to make sure that in our general budget, we focus on water needs, we focus on transportation needs. We leave so much out of the budget process because Democrats have too much influence. So one of the things that I will do, Joanne, there will not be 50% of the Legislative Budget Board controlled by liberal Democrats. It's just unacceptable. Secondly, I will work with the senators. It's a Senate rule on the 21 vote rule. Those of you who know me know I've been fighting for this. I ran on this when I ran for office. And on the first day on the Senate floor, when freshmen aren't supposed to speak, I fought that rule and I lost 30-1. That's okay. I stood on principle, and today we have 10 senators ready to change that rule. It should be 19 to mirror the cloture vote in the U.S. Senate, 60%. It just so happens that we have 19 Republicans. I think we'll have 20 now that Wendy is running for governor and will win that seat. But we should not allow the Democrats to control the process. Again, we passed a budget this session that 4 conservatives like myself voted against at the end of the day after the full process, but every Democrat voted for and praised. So how do we fix it? We focus on pay-as-you-go, we reduce our debt, we end the diversions, we don't let the Democrats shape the budget, and we follow conservative principles. We get rid of programs like the Enterprise Fund, like the Emerging Fund, like the Major Events Fund. And by the way, in 2011, you were wrong. Brian Birdwell and I did have an amendment to end in-state tuition. I just want to correct the record.
Well, there's no correction needed because I didn't say you didn't try. I said you didn't do it.
Okay, time.
Well, you know what?
Talking
Time.
and doing are 2 different things.
2 of us stood on principle and tried.
Hey,
You didn't.
you too.
That's wrong, Dan.
Wait a
Don't point your
minute.
finger
Wait,
in my face.
wait. Now, Commissioner Staples, you will have a chance to go at Senator Patrick here in just a little bit. We have to remember what we were taught. You have to wait your turn. Just wait your turn. Okay, it's gonna be Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst. Now, Lieutenant Governor, based on the three facts that I laid out here, and I was talking about session-to-session spending, I was talking about the fact that Texas is 11th in the nation in reliance on federal aid, and Texas leads the nation in road debt, and by the way, state debt has grown 125% in the last 10 years. So, Lieutenant Governor, based on what Senator Patrick said, please ask him a question.
You sort of put me in a narrow road here. The Senator, do you agree or disagree with the three statements that I'm going to ask you about on these three elements? One, that the $20 billion that Joanne is talking about are Medicaid expenditures, which we told people we were going to delay in 2011 in order to get reforms on Medicaid, and which we were able to reform and get savings of some $2 billion. And so the Legislative Budget Board allocated for the 2011 session, the 12 and 13 cost, and for 2013, I don't want to confuse people, this biennium's cost. A. B, I had never heard that statistic. I'm going to go back and take a look at it on the 11th in the nation. The state of Texas in 2009
Time to Governor.
received.
So based on what he was able to ask you, Dan, please reply.
Well, Governor, I agree with her statement of the spending increase session to session. That's why the Wall Street Journal said Texas is going California. We increase, all the people out here care about is how much money did we spend then and how much money are we spending now. No matter how you want to color code it, how you want to categorize it, it's their money. And when that's all that counts.
So do you agree or disagree that when you look at the last 10-year period, our spending has been the lowest as a percentage of growth of any other state in the country? It's been 11.5% below inflation and population growth. Do you agree with that?
I cannot compare it to the other 49 states, so I don't have that fact.
Well, do you agree that it's been 11.5% below inflation and population growth for the last 10 years?
Well, it depends on how you want to calculate that number.
No, I'm just looking at, you just look at the
Governor,
10 years and then today.
Yes, and you know how you get to that number? When you go out and borrow $20 and $30 billion so you get under that level. We have to stop that. You're playing with numbers.
What would you say Texas is one of the 20 most frugal on debt, 10 most frugal? What would you say?
Governor,
we're one of the
Governor,
five.
we're
45th.
Okay. I think we are a frugal state. But it is so easy to go off the path. And this past session, we started to go off the path. We're going off the path on debt. I do not want Texas to be California. And we have to be disciplined in every dollar we spend. We were not disciplined. Commissioner Patterson was right. I was the only senator in finance who voted to save the rainy day fund in 2011. I was the only senator in finance who voted to stop the $25 million for the F1. You supported all those issues. We have to be disciplined.
Senator,
their money.
Senator, time.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Staples, you get to now ask Senator Patrick your question.
Senator, you just said you're the only senator that voted to save the rainy day fund. You do a really good job creating the impression that you're watching the spending. And we Texans expect that. Texans expect people to cut our spending and to hold it tight to the vest. And yet you voted to empty the rainy day fund earlier in the session and spend $6 billion that would have essentially wiped out the rainy day fund for several different purposes. But then here tonight, you're critical of the budget, you're talking a big game on the budget process, but you yourself voted for $6 billion expenditure out of the rainy day fund. So I'm trying to recognize that in light of authentic conservative leadership and how that balances out, because I just like that reconcile.
The people, and I appreciate this is an interesting format. And by the way, I didn't mean to point, I apologize. But I just wanted to be sure people knew that Senator Birdwell and I did try to end in-state tuition. We lost, but we tried. We're the only two that have tried in 10 years. I have received constantly from every conservative rating group who looks at all of our budget votes. I've gotten an A+ from Americans Prosperity. I've gotten only one of 3 senators to get an A rating from Empower Texas for my fiscal record. So I don't apologize. I've been very strong in that. In the 2011 session, I was correct when I was the only Republican on finance to vote against the rainy day fund. I rallied the troops on the floor, and we saved the rainy day fund in 2011, and the Tea Party advisory board knows that because they watched that fight. This year, we had money in the rainy day fund to pay the bills that were not paid from the last session, and everyone voted on that. That was not taking, that's what the rainy day fund is for, to pay the bills that we don't have the money for. But at the end of the session, when it came down to our new transportation bill, I was the one who led the floor fight to make sure we always had a minimum of a $6 billion floor in the rainy day fund.
The expenditures last session, though, were some of the same that you voted for this session out of the rainy day fund. So that's kind of an inconsistent statement. It really is, because the session before that, it was some of those same issues that you voted for this session. And so it's just an inconsistency that I see there. It's good to rail about these things, and we do need to be fiscal conservatives, but we need to be consistent if we're doing it.
Commissioner, all I can say is the watchdog, fiscal hawk, conservative groups that watch everything we do, I'm the only senator to consistently get an A rating on my vote to protect taxpayer dollars session after session after session after session. I stand on my record.
Okay. Commissioner Patterson, would you like to ask Senator Patrick a question based on, do you want me to go over the points again? Because I understand it's...
I think I know where we started,
Okay.
and there was some comment about changing the budgetary process and changing the makeup of the Senate as a method to achieve a conservative objective. And my question, Dan, to you is, I have heard at various times, and I've had described to me by several other senators, that your position on the number of Democrat chairs in the Senate has been none. Then I've heard fewer than what Governor Dewhurst has appointed. Then I saw the Texas Tribune, it was 0, maybe 1 or 2. There are 18 committees. Yes. There are 6 chaired by Democrats. So I want to know what the real number is, and I would ask you this. If you're so conservative and you're so focused on Republican control and the hardworking folks out here that got us elected, why not 0?
What I said in the Tribune, and I'm the only person running for lieutenant governor who has even broached this subject. No one even wants to talk about it.
Well, let's be specific.
And here's what I said. Evan Smith asked me the question, and as you know, ethically, we have to be very careful in running for office, talking about certain issues. But in broad terms, here's exactly what I told Evan, and this is what I'll say to the crowd tonight. That as lieutenant governor, when day 1 comes, every chairmanship is open. I will find the best qualified person to be chairman.
I just kind of want the number.
Excuse me, let me finish.
I'm just
I will find
trying
the
to be
best
specific.
person. I will find the best person, and one of those qualifications will be conservative. And what I said to Evan, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 0. But if you're asking me to sit here tonight and say I'm not appointing
but you're
any,
going
or
to
it
have
could be
Democrat
1.
chairs, is what you're
No.
saying. You're not going to exclude Democrat chairs.
Commissioner, it could well be that there are not any Democrat
Okay.
chairs.
All right.
I'll
Now-
make that decision as
Yeah.
lieutenant governor.
Now, I would ask you this. When we're talking about money, we're talking about being fiscally conservative.
2 questions? I'm good.
We're talking about
I like
money,
your
talking
question.
about fiscal conservative.
Yes.
Can you give me one agency or that you would substantially reduce in size or maybe eliminate?
Yeah, well, in the session before last, we did cut by about 1/3 the number of employees in the Texas Education Agency.
And
sa-
TDA as well, I think.
Yeah, and I would eliminate it's not an agency per se, but I would eliminate the enterprise fund, the emerging fund, and you brought up the major events trust fund earlier. Senator Bob Dole and I passed legislation to address that issue this session, reform it, I think it should go away. So those would be the first three right
Yeah,
there.
but those aren't really agencies.
I said
Those
they're not
are-
really
yeah,
agencies.
Yeah, they're methods of expenditure. Those dollars.
We need
Yeah.
to continue to reduce the TEA, and we need to reduce the 56,000
What about
employees
the
we have in
educational
public-
service centers? Now, it's my understanding that, that was supposed to come up for sunset in the next session, but you arranged to delay the ESC sunset?
Time.
I did
time,
not arrange
time,
that.
Well, that's what I understand.
Well, you
Time,
understand incorrectly.
We'll
gentlemen.
talk about it later.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it.
You know what? Y'all are going to get to do this again with me in Tyler on October 12th. So y'all just see if y'all had some notes up here. I don't know, did you all tell them they couldn't have note paper? Because see, if they had notes, everybody could be making notes, and you could save some of these great comments you got for each other for October 12th.